Welcome to Emotional Sobriety, the next step in recovery, with Dr. Alan Berger and Tom Rutledge.
Well, let's jump in and do this thing. We'll knock off a half an hour or so of it. Tom's got no electricity and no internet.
Right. He's gone back to the colonial era.
They said it's going to be out for some time.
Really? Yeah. It reminds me of the ice storm in Texas. I believe it was in 2021.
Remember that one? That was terrible.
Yeah, my parents got snowed in with that. So I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't linger for quite as long my sister lives near Tom. So she's been dealing with it also. So there's an article from let me just start with Tom's nutshells, even though he's absent. This is from his nutshell master list. The first is, how much of what you believe do you really believe? Which stuck out to me because I've got some beliefs that I cling to pretty fiercely, but I'm also aware that belief and delusion live right next to each other. And you want to dismantle the delusions and you want to hold the beliefs close that empower you to do positive things or constructive things. And so I think it's just like with emotional sobriety, we can disentangle ourselves from, figure out what works and then abandon the delusion. Right.
Well, it's a very complicated subject, to tell you the truth. And what do I mean by that, Patrick? So let's talk about that for a minute. You see, beliefs are influenced by a lot of different forces, right? Obviously, the culture you grow up in, provides a worldview. It shapes our consciousness in terms of what we see reality as, how we interpret reality. You see that when you start comparing other cultures in terms of their belief system. So our culture, promotes a lot of beliefs around that are to support our capitalism, right? The nature of the way that our society functions. It's a society that's based on having. So a lot of our beliefs are around the way Eric Fromm talked about it. I am more the more I have. And so, see, that's why somebody like Gurdjieff will say, we are asleep dreaming we're awake, because he saw and he was able to understand that when we grow up in this stuff, we are put in like a trance. You can think of it. So we accept those beliefs uncritically because it's what our world is made up of. It's what our parents are. It's what everybody. There's a social consensus, if you will, in terms of these beliefs that we have to have. But as you start to wake up, you realize that there's some problems with a society be based on just materialism. What was it? I heard about somebody, a baseball pitcher, the other day being paid $75 million for 3 years.
Was it Shohei Ohtani?
No, oh God, he's going to be paid a lot more than that. I mean, he'll be
Crazy.
paid
Wow.
in hundreds of millions, right? Yeah. I mean, no, but this is a good player, just kind of not top tier, but close to that. But my point is is that he's paid that for entertainment for the team and all the money the team makes. It's all based on the money they're going to make, right? Well, our school teachers who are teaching our kids how to become people and how to learn and how to look at the world are getting maybe $80,000 a year. I mean, it just shows you. Father Richard Rohr used to say those kinds of contrasts in our society show it's not a society based on wisdom, and it's not. It's based on materialism. It's based on making money. It's based on entertainment. All of those things that people can sell. God, the MLB teams, they make millions and millions of dollars in TV rights and ticket sales and all these other merchandise. I mean, it's a big business. So what happens is that we live our life with all of these things that we are just grown up with, that we're given. In addition to those things, that we're also, our self-concept is shaped by how we're being treated when we're younger. So then we develop certain beliefs about ourselves as well. Some of those aren't as obvious. I can see sometimes if I'm impatient with my kids, I send a message like, you're wrong because of who you are. And I could just see that if there's a steady diet of that, the child is going to develop a concept that is a negative self-concept. Or like when I was in Paris and I just took care of them when they were sick and I didn't complain about you ruined the trip, right? Oh God, our trip is ruined, which would to them mean I am wrong. I ruined this trip because of who I am. Well,
Yeah.
no, they're not. They just got sick. But see, these are the subtle ways that we then undermine a child's self-concept. So all of this stuff goes into today psychologists talk about it as a cognitive schema, is a whole schema of the way that we think about ourselves, about the world, how the world operates, how we're supposed to operate, the values that are important. Like I said, in this society, it's what you have determines who you are. And so now the emphasis on materialism, right? And, what's the George Harrison song, Living in a Material World?
Hmm.
He wrote that because the Beatles were going through that. It was all about them making money. And then they got exposed to some of the spirituality in India, and dropping acid and stuff like that and open up their consciousness. And so they started to see that everything was out of balance. And they started to talk about that and write about it and sing about it. And I think that's what happens in our society now, like even our 12-step movement. It's counterculture. It's focusing on spirituality, not having. But you'll see people bring that having thing in. I have 54 years of recovery. Like it's a possession that's in
Right, right.
my,
It's something you work on. Yeah.
yeah, something you possess. I mean, I don't, it's a grace, maybe, I don't know. I
Yeah,
have
I
it.
gotta say, I wish I could possess it, but it's not possible.
Well, so these are the things that permeate us. The real, so when we start to wake up, we start to realize, that this is just the way that I have been programmed to look at the world, and that there's other possibilities. We also start to challenge these ideas of our self-concept and realize, you know what? I swallowed whole my mother or my father's attitude towards me. They didn't want me, that I was unwelcome. And so what happened is now I start to treat myself that way. So we start to challenge these things. And that's one of the things that you've heard me say this and that we talk about in recovery. Recovery is about recovering our lost self, our lost real self, authentic self. It means that we lost the concept that I am enough as I am. Doesn't mean I don't have work to do. It doesn't mean that I still need to grow and I still need to own and take responsibility for my, shortcomings, those kinds of things. Yes, I do. So anyway, but it means that if I accept myself as I am, then I have a solid foundation to grow from. That's the bottom line here. So this is a very, very good nutshell because it really gets us to think about what are some of my beliefs. Now, the other thing that's interesting is when you look at social psychology and some of these ideas, they do a lot of work on this, what they call cognitive dissonance. That if I'm doing something that doesn't fit with who I am, how do I resolve that dissonance? And so it's a very interesting thing. So there's a lot of complicated things. Like if someone is in a social psychology experiment, let's say you come in the experiment and the experiment is that because you're liberal, you have to be a conservative and you have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
espouse a conservative ideal, right? To someone and convince them of it. And if I pay you $100 to do it, you'll do it, but you won't lose your belief that you're a liberal. But if I pay you $1 to do it and you go ahead and convince, you'll start to challenge your own belief because you have to make it congruent with what you just did. And you can't say, I did it for the money. So there's things like that. We won't go into all that. But this is an important thing is to be aware of. And how do we know? The one thing that is if we stay aware of what we're doing, we will see that some of our beliefs enhance our encounter with life, enhance our relationship with ourselves, enhance our relationship with others. Those are healthy. The ones that diminish it are the ones we got to challenge. And that's where being honest with ourselves becomes really important. Like you said, Patrick, if we delude ourselves into thinking that this is okay, even though all the evidence is to the contrary, we're heading for trouble.
Well, I've definitely noticed with you, a paring away of things that do not enhance your encounter with life. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful
It's a good
thing.
it's a good way to say it, is paring away. That's what we do, right? We are. We're definitely paring those things away. It's cool. It's a cool process. It's cool to start waking up and knowing that the journey is ongoing.
Right on. Well, I would love to get your take for the time we have left. There's an article about emotional sobriety. It's in the column on Slate. Let me just share it with you. So this is from Slate and it's late last year in 2025, but it's I quit drinking. It's great. There's just one small problem. How do I handle my emotions without whiskey? So the question that somebody asks AJ, who's Slate's advice column on addiction recovery and how to hate yourself less. Dear AJ, what helps you with your emotional sobriety? I found not drinking to be relatively easy after binging and blacking out on booze for 20 years, but dealing with life without pouring whiskey all over my feelings, that's been a challenge. How do you not become a dry drunk? And so here's the first part of his answer. This is a question that plagues so many newly sober people who have put their booze down but have traded it for constant agitation and world weariness. Before we start, let's get some traditional interpretations for both emotional sobriety and dry drunk that will not require readers to power through the 12-step program in the next 5 minutes to understand this column. Bill Wilson, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, coined the term emotional sobriety, which in simple terms can be defined as inner peace. Now, let me pause right there. Is he off base there with the inner peace?
No, I think that's right. I mean, it's an inner peace that comes from having emotional autonomy, being having a true independence of spirit. So that's well stated.
Okay, awesome. So, after many years without a drink, Wilson experienced a bout of depression, which almost drove him to a disastrous relapse. Then he wrote Emotional Sobriety, The Next
Okay, well,
Frontier.
let's back up there. See, that's wrong. Bill suffered depression his whole life, even before he became an alcoholic. He thinks back when he was depressed in his childhood. So he had a chronic depression that was going on throughout Bill's recovery. I don't think it almost caused him a relapse, but what it did do is he understood that it it limited his happiness and his serenity in the program, and he started to wonder what was causing my depression, because he saw it as somehow a symptom of something else. So he got curious about what was underneath it. So that's not exactly accurate.
Well, that's good. That's an important distinction. Um, then he wrote Emotional Sobriety, The Next Frontier, which, in my opinion, is the one piece of AA literature that is most valuable to non alcoholic civilians. Now,
And that's
dry drunk,
true.
yeah.
And that's true. He didn't write that. He wrote a letter that became the article Emotional Sobriety: The Next Frontier. It was actually a letter written in 1953. It showed up in the Grapevine in 1958 as this article. It was modified from Bill's original letter, but not much. Most of the letter was preserved.
Did he take anything crucial out of that letter, or did he
No,
was there?
no,
No,
no, no. It was
very good.
they maintained the essence of what he was trying to say.
Excellent. So now, dry drunk is a term that I believe people are more familiar with. It's a way to describe an alcoholic who may no longer drink but still exhibits noxious and destructive behavior. What's the point of not drinking if all your friends and family find you an insufferable dickhead and no longer want to hang around with you? It's a puzzle for sure. I like the verbiage there. Um, in order to deal with life without pouring whiskey all over your feelings, you have to stick with your routine of things that make you feel like a good, balanced person. Ideally, you do all the sometimes sort of boring maintenance stuff before things get out of whack. I believe the best way to avoid drunk dryness is by attending AA meetings, doing the steps, sponsoring, etc. If you commit to a 12-step program and do it the way you're supposed to, you'll likely keep your worst instincts in check. If not AA, you need some kind of practice that keeps you grounded. And on top of that, you need to take care of your physical self. I know that when I haven't been to an AA meeting or the gym, or when my sleep is off, or when I'm eating cheesecake for dinner, it's probably too late. Now, this is generally kind of on the ball, right?
No, I think he's off. See, it's not just about doing those things. It's understanding what emotional dependency does to our emotional equilibrium or our emotional state of mind. See, I think this is what people think it's just taking care of yourself, and it's not. Emotional sobriety, like he's saying about the cheesecake, emotional sobriety is about developing a whole different way of living. And so this is a very, very, what I would call very rudimentary understanding of what it is. He doesn't even understand that. Bill said that if you work the steps, they help you achieve emotional sobriety. Well, what is that? It's freedom. It's not just inner peace, but it's freedom.
Right. Right. It's about the dependency. And, that is
It's
like the
about
crux of the
address.
matter.
That is the crux of the matter, and he doesn't pick that up here.
Well, let's see if this becomes a redemption story and he gets it later on. Um, then from there, it's only a matter of time before my emotional sobriety is in the toilet. Here are some patterns of behavior that are always surefire signs I'm completely off. This gets kind of funny. Yelling at the dog, sending all caps emails, wailing on the car horn, kicking the RoboVac for getting in my way. Yes, I've kicked that little droid monster across the kitchen floor. Not proud of it, and I do not recommend it as those things are deceptively heavy. And once I'm violent towards the RoboVac, I know there's a good chance I will embarrass myself by acting truly horrid towards a human being soon after that. I mean, I won't kick anyone, but I could definitely end some friendships when I'm in that mode. You probably have your own version of these warning signs. When you start seeing them, the key to avoiding overload is to do some game planning. First, let's identify all the things that may activate your discomfort. The way your boss blatantly undermines you on Zoom calls in front of your coworkers, your mother in law's opinions about your parenting, the exorbitant cost of Oasis tickets, even though they don't change your set list, whatever it may be. That way, you'll know when you're headed into a situation that could potentially cause the worst version of you to show up and wreck the place. And if you do practice this 12 steps, remind yourself that if you act out, you're destined to have to make amends if you take something too far. If you don't practice the 12 steps, well, you probably don't want to have to explain to HR why you yelled on a Zoom call either. Then you have to recenter before or after heading into one of those challenging situations. For me, the best things that slow down my brain and keep me grounded are pretty simple and obvious: meditation, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and long walks with a weighted vest on. I know, don't judge. When I'm consistent with those, I'm softer and more considerate of others. But exercise, mindfulness, putting your phone down and playing with your dog, whatever you like to do, those tools are there for you at any time. You can always choose to turn to them instead of acting out. Now, I think this goes back to what you were talking about earlier, which is not addressing or identifying that dependency on my boss's opinion of me is my opinion of myself, that kind of thing, which is
Yeah,
really,
see, he's not addressing here the fact of the emotional immaturity, right? What is causing that reaction? Well, I expect this or I expect that. So, he's not digging into his expectations at all. And that was a big theme in in that Grapevine article, is looking at our expectations and understanding that every time I'm upset, there's something wrong with me, not something wrong with the other person, that it's based on some idea, some belief I have or expectation I have about how things are supposed to be.
yeah, yeah. Well, let's see. He gets into some Buddhist stuff. So the other cooling off method I like is popular in Buddhism, found in nearly every. Now, how do I pronounce this? Pema Chodron,
Yeah,
greatest hits. Pema Chodron,
immature.
greatest hits compilation. Whenever you feel hatred, replace it with love. This is also a popular refrain from the St. Francis prayer, which is a fantastic decompressive go to at boiling point. If you're going to go that route, you must make sure it's genuine and not in that condescending Southern aristocratic bless his heart way, because that attitude leaves a heavy weight on your soul as well. Here's a great prayer I've learned over the years that when I'm on my A game, I begin my mornings with and carry with me throughout the day. Let your thoughts be my thoughts. Let your words be my words. Let your actions be my actions. The word your in the prayer doesn't necessarily have to refer to God or higher power. Still, it does have to be whatever brings out the best version of you, the most rational version of you. It's crucial that you can flip the switch over to that version of you as quickly as you can to the worst version. Stopping drinking is only the beginning here. The most challenging part is not letting your drunk escape. But I think you know this already. Just put the extra effort into reminding yourself of it every day. Well, the one useful thing in here, despite the rudimentary understanding, is living in the pause. I think that he's really
Living in the pause and asking, to let the best in us run the rest of us. That's what he's saying in this little prayer that he uses. It's about, bringing the best of us out. And it's that whole idea that Bill talked about as our Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, right? Our job is to deal with and tame our Mr. Hyde. And we do that with our Dr. Jekyll, with the best in us. And so, yeah, he got some parts of it. Look, the good thing is he's putting the idea out there that there's more to recovery than just putting the plug in the jug, more to recovery than just stop drinking. And that's really that's the part of his message I really like.
the parable, or I don't know if we would call it a parable, but it's something that you experienced when you went to the bank and there was a lady in
Oh, yeah.
front of you that was taking a really long time. The part of the reason that's so good is that it activates our empathy for
That's right.
the specific thing that's aggravating us. If we could think about it in a different way, then we relieve ourselves just as much as we
Yep.
relieve ourselves, and then we kind of we're cultivating that harmony with the world around us.
Yep. Very true.
Well,
All right, man. Good show today. Good
thank
article you
you.
brought in.
Okay, I tried.